Hey everybody. It's interesting how the topics that come to me in these waves. In other words, like I'll get a wave. It could be a couple months, years, weeks, whatever. It could be like lots and lots of past questions about past life regressions, lots about relationship, lots about. It's just interesting to kind of map out the issues that come up, and in particularly what regions at what time, and what's also going on in current events or astrological, astronomical events as well. It's just a funny picture. I don't have any. I couldn't give a workshop on it because I have so many questions unanswered, but I just still think it's really interesting. Which brings up the next topic, which is about shadow work. And over the last couple weeks, it would trickle in, but then this last week, so many people were asking about death walking and shadow work, dark side work, nurturing their beast, and so on. They're quoting me on that one. I always talk about you have to feed your beast. And so today, again, two more questions about like, okay, I'll do a video. But first I want to go ahead and remind people, or at least want to get you to think about the possibility that a lot of the terminology that we have or the reflections upon self that we like to give a label to came from someplace else. So when people talk my dark side, my shadow work, all this, that's not their terminology. Of course, we learn language from other people, right? But in not just learning the language from parents or your community, and you're learning the terminology, but you're also picking up the perceptions of things. And everything is a perception. Reality is perception. I like to say there's three reality: universal reality, which is chemistry and physics; perceived reality of how you think things are; and accepted reality is how you act on your perceived reality. So when we're talking about good and bad, and especially those of you who've been traveling around the world and you go to cultures that are completely different than your own, and then go into another culture that is completely different than the last one you're at and your own, and how normalized some things are that you would just go, I don't want to be a part of that. But to them, it's great. It's always been this way, or gods and goddesses love it. But you could have to also, to be balanced, look back at your own culture and what weird things do we have that other cultures just go, no, absolutely not. So just keeping that in mind. So when you're talking about your shadow side, I have to first then get the person to ask themselves, is this really what you're calling your shadow, or is it just another part of you? They're like, well, what do you mean? How could me wanting to do these things, liking these things, fantasizing these things, how could that be part of me? Well, there's a few things that really stop spiritual growth, or they can inhibit a person from becoming whole in their truth. All right, in their real core about who they are. And the three biggest ones, I think, is fear, guilt, and shame. And that usually comes from what they like or what they experience in themselves compared to the acceptance level or even rejection level in the outside of themselves, in their immediate and in surrounding environments. It's a human instinct, to not like rejection, because in the very, very early stages of humanity, rejection meant death. You needed the community to live. So you wanted to also participate in your community. You wanted to make your people and your culture whole and strong to survive. Well, nowadays we can live a little bit more independently. We have the freedom in a lot of cultures to freedom of expression, to be yourself, no matter how ridiculous others may find it. So I do these appointments with people, and appointments are usually 2-hour minimum. And as most therapists, whether it's massage therapists, a psychologist, psychologists, life coaches will tell you, people really don't open up until maybe 40, 45 minutes, the last part of an hour appointment. Then they really start spilling it, and by then it's time to go. And then you go to this same process next week or next appointment. And I do 2 hours. We can take a little breaks in between, but usually towards the end of the first hour, they're really opening up. I'm getting in between where I can kind of like pick out the pieces of her truth and project itself. And then the next hour is usually 100%, progress. And to me, It's a lot better for them. It's a lot more financial value for them, because they're getting all that other, it's better than just restarting every week. So once we're getting into exploring that, and if they get to the point like, well, yeah, maybe I do like these things a little bit. Well, I kind of sort of thought about trying some things, but then I corrected myself. I want to be a good person and blah, 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 more narrative and whatever. And it's like, okay, but have you told anybody else this? No, absolutely not. No wife, no husband, no. Priests? No. And people think that the confessing the shadow things or the sins or whatever to the priest is, well, why wouldn't they do that? Because the priest is going to punish them. Okay, you go say your bunch of Hail Marys, go do this and that. Well, they're handing that out because you're bad. You did something wrong. You need to be punished. I don't do that. I just ask questions. I ask questions, and then later on I get around and repeat the answers in like a sequence and go, what pictures does this paint? And then sometimes the people will say, well, it makes me look like a bad person. To whom? You said you like these things. You don't really see anything wrong other than the fact you'd be rejected or punished for it. You're not asking to harm anyone. Why is this bad? And it's like, you can't come up with any more excuses, And so then they start to work through that. And the other thing about the duty of a real shaman is to also be the confidant. They come to me because I have a reputation of I'm not telling anybody anything, period. I don't care if there's an arrest warrant for me or whatever. If you haven't committed some heinous crime, well, I'm going to try and get you to go ahead and confess and solve the crime, and I've had that happen, but people will also say, well, what if I really want to do some really bad things, commit murders and things? I'm like, well, I suggest you don't. If you want to get into that kind of a lifestyle, I would suggest you join the military and volunteer for war, Even if you don't qualify for our military, there's other militaries in other countries that are more than happy to have help. I've been down that road myself, and I've had other people go down that road too. Some people are just natural hunters like that. You can call that their dark side. I mean, I fit really well in those environments in my younger years, and I grew out of it. And I was a different man then. Was that my shadow side coming out? Was I my shadow side in domination of me or dominating me? No, I don't think so. I think I was just exploring that side a lot. And I really got to understand it, and I didn't need to be there any longer. Not to mention, one summer I had a very large amount of very severe accidents that took me out of that. I wasn't listening to the messages. But the point of it is once a person has been through all those shadow side kind of environments, we really understand what the other people are going through. We can talk from experience in that. And we also know that, again, we're just not going to repeat these things. And people ask, well, what are examples of some of the things, some of the extremes it can go to? Well, the one I just talked about, where people really want to kill other people. And believe it or not, that is one of the reasons men will join the military, just for warfare, just to test themselves. But I had one woman years ago, she loved raising chickens, and she really did that for eggs and so on. But then she was just like, I can't believe I want to kill my babies, her chickens. And I said, and then do what? Well, then I want to eat them. Okay. And I wasn't going to make any jokes about this or anything, because she was just shaking and crying uncontrollably. I couldn't believe she could be that horrible of a person, And so I had to go around, take the tour around to the back door to get into the conscious mind and so on. And long story short, we went through a couple past life regressions, and I could see how that kind of bled through into the present life and sacrificing, and it's where these things kind of got mixed up into the present incarnation and so on. And then we kind of she got to the point, I was like, okay, that really sounded ridiculous, this whole thing, didn't it? I'm like, no. And then I explained how I thought that this all process came together from past life to present. And she goes, oh, so it's really not the shadow side. No, it's kind of like a short circuit, past life bleed through kind of thing. And so, and it can be in any topic of humanity. Okay, it can be some people I've worked with, it just to have any kind of extra money was their dark side, their shadow side trying to take over. Money's evil and so on. But that's how they were brought up, very, very poor. I've had some people that were very wealthy. They talked to me wanting to give it all away, and that was they said that was their shadow side. No, that was more of the guilt and shame thing. That again, early programming from youth and so on. And so there's different ways to exercise into the shadow side, doing the work, and that's the other thing that the shaman does, is to participate in the exercises, to explore the dark side, to do like impromptu theater, to act out a part, to play the part, role play, basically shamanic role play theater. And it can be very constructive. People have asked me if I thought much about what they call family constellation and that kind of aspect, and no, absolutely not, because I've seen and I've proven that that kind of process can be severely manipulated by the participants. Where in a one-on-one thing, it's really not. Or I've had work with people with other shamans who I trusted impeccably, that I knew that they would play their part true to the character needed, and then I would trust that scenario. But to get a bunch of strangers around or people still working out their issues to play these other parts, no, especially if it's freeform. So, and people say, have you gotten into really extreme things? And working out or exploring people's dark side. Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of your domination, BDSM scenes, sexual healing issues, sexual role play, things like that can be part of it. Things that are just not widely accepted in social structures, at least on the Western world and so on. To the point you can get into the shadow, so you can see where it's going sometimes, and like, whoa, okay, I don't think I want to get to the extreme of this road down to this dead end. Definitely not. And to where you can kind of slow the process down and maybe get to the issues that's really provoking it, and not get down to that crash and burn phase at the end of that road. And I'm happy to say I've never had to go to some of these extremes where they were getting ready to go to. And that's a real skill set that each shaman has to work out themselves, of how to avoid the train wreck of the shadow side exploration. It's a tricky game. This is nothing for new shamans. It's not. Definitely not for people who say, I do shamanic work, or I would never if you're a shaman, call yourself a shaman. If you're not qualified to do something, say you're not. As an issue, as an example on that, just take a side note, I just about always recommend women to go see other women. Sometimes they need a man's perspective. I can give them that, but I have other women I raise because I'm not qualified to do that. And so, and some types of trauma suffered by female, I'm not qualified for that. So the shaman you work with has to know what they're really qualified. People say, well, could you channel a spirit guide? No, it's me. If I can't pull it from here, I'm not doing it, okay? And I have enough of shadow side exploration from myself, from my training when I was in my apprenticeship, and working with other people, assisting people more experienced than I was, until they felt they would give me a case and just watch how I handled it. There's that much out there to do with people. I mean, there's that much shadow work out there to do with people. And again, if I was to say why there's so much of it, is because the social structure is so condemning, so allegedly self-righteous, and so on. Let me put out another example here. Let's just take this pencil and just say, in this pencil, if I can get it to actually balance on my finger, right? If not, we have a center point. Boop. And let's say that is your balanced person, a person starting their journey, and then they always going over here to the light, always going to the light, always the good self, boom, they're off balance. And I tell people, if you're going to start your spiritual journey to the right and you want to go 100 yards, you should go 100 yards to the dark, even if only on thought, on imagination, and just in visualizing that much of you on the dark side. If we want to break it into these two very, very overly simplistic aspects of humanity, then I'd say you'd have to do that to be balanced. Otherwise, you're just going to, that's where you get these people that are all peace, love, white light, just flip out and just kind of go blow a fuse, get some scandal or whatever. They're imbalanced. It's clearly imbalanced. And people, I don't want to be a bad person. And especially women. So you look at this, and I tell them, look at the lioness. She's so sensual. She's so beautiful. She's so loving. Don't play with her the wrong way, okay? Because she could be the killer. She could be the one covered in blood, tearing out the insides of other animals. Not because she hates them. She could do that to something she didn't like, but mainly to feed her young and so on. But she has that aspect. And she will practice that. So she's that real clean, quick killer for whatever reason. And then she can go back and roll over on her back, scratch my belly, let her kids play, and so on. That's balance. That's balance in nature. So I think to be that well-rounded spiritual person, then you need to practice that. And one of the nice things about being a shaman that works with people's dark sides, shadow sides, and so on, then you get that other opportunity to explore that side of you because you're participating in that event, and sometimes you can change roles with the person and explore that side as well. And that gives that person even more confidence because you're willing to engage in that with them at that level. And so I appreciate any of the times when I get to work on different aspects of myself in any capacity. But I have to honestly say some of the best work that I've done on myself is working with people, exploring their dark side, their beast, their shadow side, doing shadow work and so on. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the comments and so on, and or share the video if you like that. And I'll go ahead and do other videos on that, especially since it's such a interesting times have come up with this so much. One thing I will say, I think that people have gotten to a point over the last few years, they've just had enough. The fallacies that have been told to them from authoritative figures, the things that are getting exposed, people and systems and policies that they trusted just gone wrong. They've gotten to this point and they feel themselves enraged. They feel themselves wanting to strike out, so on, and they're looking at, oh no, it must be some evil entity trying to take me over, or this is my beast getting out of control. No, you should be pissed at a lot of things going on these days. That's just a normal thing. You don't let this, you don't suppress it and let it build up and just blow up at a wrong time. There's other exercises to work through, right? Explosive sports, punching a bag, martial art workouts, weightlifting, sprints, really explosive physical activity to really get that out is one of the best ways of self-maintenance too, if you're worried about your shadow side and so on getting out of control. Okay, like I said, like, subscribe, follow, share it. I promise I'll be putting more videos up here, and I'll be also working on my podcast. My boat's almost finished. I'm almost in the water, so I have more time to be able to put into these things. All right, guys. Be well. Catch you later.